What up? It's your girl Sharryse, and I have a strong, powerful woman on the line whose opinion and political stance has gotten her known all over the country. She's a teacher, a mother, and a good friend of mine, Miss Rubia Garcia. What's up?
Hey, Ma, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome back.
I know it's been a while. We haven't caught up in a long time. Out here making moves and things like that. Got to keep up with you.
Oh, yeah, I got to keep up with you, too. Happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Double 3. Happy to make it, that's all.
Oh, yeah, I feel you on that. Well, we're going to jump right into the interview. So, you're known for your political thoughts on social media. Has that affected how people approach you, maybe on your job or even just walking down the street?
I'll say there's been changes over the last few years ever since I got the following that I had. I mean, it's been good and bad, and I take them both hand in hand. My mom used to say that a flower needs both sunlight and rain in order to grow, so I kind of take everything, compliments and criticisms in the same regard. This is a personal growth type thing. I'll say that more often than not, I didn't seek out the attention or any kind of notoriety. So more often than not, when I'm walking around and if somebody's staring at me, my instinct, my New Orleans in me starts giving them a side eye, like, what are you looking at? Like, why are you looking at me like that? And then they'll say something like, I'm sorry, are you a teacher? And I'm like, yeah, I am. They're like, I knew that was you, and I heard you talking. I was like, yeah, that's her. So it's me, and they're not sure. But then as soon as I open my mouth to somebody or in their presence, they're like, yeah, that's gotta be her. So it's overwhelmingly in person. It's been fairly positive. Like I guess I have an in-person negative interaction outside of somebody, whoever it was. I was sitting down with my kids at the mall and came and sat down in the chair next to my son while we're eating lunch. Like, what is this? But overall, I mean, it's been overwhelmingly positive. As you know how people get on the internet behind a computer screen. And
the trolls.
Oh, absolutely. I was dealing with one last night. I said, you know what, I think in this generation, this social media push and this generation in particular, it's giving people this false sense of security that you can say whatever you want and suffer no consequences whatsoever for it.
Right.
And up until you read on the newspaper, it slides up into your news feed that so-and-so lost a job or there was a fight that broke out because of this, that, and the third. And these things do, at some point, create some kind of conflict. But like I said, other than that, it's been overwhelmingly positive and personal. I'll say it's had an effect on like friendships and relationships or even family, because I have a supporter of our president within my own family, so we tend not to even we won't talk about certain things at Christmas dinner. You know, like we're not going to talk about politics. There's no point in even going there. But other than that, the people within my circle, to be honest, the people within my circle, like my girls, for the most part, I'm not going to sit down and we're not going to be going out and having some cocktails somewhere and sit here and talk about healthcare and tax reform and things like that. Like, it's not like a topic of conversation. So it's really been kind of, it's been weird for them to adjust, because then they message me and they send me a screenshot of somebody that's like, oh my God, like you're friends with Rubia Garcia? I'm like, dude, it's so crazy, because I still wake up early in the morning. I still go to a teaching job every single day. I still live paycheck to paycheck. I still take care of 2 kids on my own. I still work multiple jobs to provide for my family. So I don't even realize what's going on at the time when it comes down to those things. But I mean, as far as there's people that I work with that I know are that don't share my political views or my societal views, but they've, for the most part, like I said, it's been either they don't talk to me at all, or it's a mutual respect type thing, which is
That's
all that I
good.
can ask for in this time, in this day and age. As long as we can agree to disagree, or at least show respect for one another's opinions, even if we do see things completely different. I think that that's probably one of the biggest things missing in our society as a whole, is people don't take into consideration that I have a lifetime worth of experiences that got me to this point. I shared with you the last time we were on the phone with Hayes Williams, and I told you about that gentleman that my dad had gotten out of prison after doing 30 years, and he came to live with us. So that experience made me look at things a different way. So people don't tend to, in this day and age, they lack empathy. They lack the ability to look at things and even take into consideration, because they lack that intellectual maturity to at least consider somebody else's opinion, because they maybe feel the sense that somebody's trying to change it, and that's not necessarily the case. All this is a part of growth. But like I said, if I can get mutual respect, then that's cool. But
I feel you. I'm sending all positive vibes your way, girl. All positive vibes.
I'll take all that I can get at this point.
A few months back, we spoke offline, and you told me you were putting in the work to go back to law school. Well, to go to law school. Is that something that you're still pushing for?
I have always, especially since my dad, and I was so involved in that case with my dad as a very young girl, 10 years old, 11 years old, with AIDS, I always wanted to be an attorney, because I liked that feeling, as unfortunate as it was, that this man was unjustly convicted, was sent to prison for a crime that he didn't commit. The people who did do it got out before him. Like, I like that feeling of helping others, and that's the heart of an empath inside of me, inside of every empath really, is that we tend to find our healing in the healing of others. So by healing other people, we find a healing within ourselves, which is ultimately what started my social media following initially, was just the writing. But as far as the law school goes, I took the LSAT in June. I got my scores back like a month later. Didn't do as well as I had hoped.
Okay.
Yeah, it's honestly, I'm surprised I did as well as I did, given the circumstances I was in. Particular, I was involved with the lawsuit against my former school district for sexual harassment. Yeah. So I was involved in all of that going on, and I was let go as a result of that. So I had literally just gotten let go like maybe 2 weeks prior to me testing. I had taken the courses and things like that, and I tried to psych myself up like, yes. But it got to a point I was sitting in the room with I joked with my friends about, in the room with like 12-year-olds because I was the oldest person there. And I just kind of chuckled. I've never been a great test taker, ever. Ever in my life.
Either.
I have really bad test anxiety, and it's like a quicksand. And I emotionally shut down. But now that I'm more prepared for it, I'm definitely pursuing it even still, and I'm still using those scores to apply to Loyola and Tulane here in the city. But I'll say that my instinct wants to help people. My instinct is I want to be a civil rights attorney, and I want to do that. But going through my trial that I did back last month in January, I got to see the ugly side of law, where I understand you're doing your job, but there comes a fine line in justice and compassion and certain requirements within being a lawyer that require you to do things that morally, because you're an empath like me, I don't know if I'd be able to do some of those things, even if it is my job. So I've been in a particular perplexing place. I'm still going to apply. I want to go back to school, period, because I'm a student of learning. I love to learn. I love to acquire new things and to continue on. So I think I might do it and not practice, to be honest. Just to say that I have it.
Wow.
Well,
good luck. I know you're awesome.
I mean,
say that again?
I'm sorry?
I said, say that again.
Me getting my Juris Doctorate, my intent for getting it, yes, I want to help people, but my way of helping people was in my mind, because I teach social studies and I'm so passionate about certain things. I want to use my knowledge and that status as a way of holding politicians accountable. Because at the end of the day, you swore an oath. You look at anybody, somebody who joins the military. Your job, and you swear an oath to defend the Constitution against everybody. It's a hold up. You're supposed to be held up to that. Yet these politicians, one after the other, John Kennedy and Bill Cassidy, our senators here in Louisiana, two of them. I did the video and we had spoke about that, about the tax reform, has shoved down the throat in 2017, and now here we are, beginning of 2018, and tax returns are down 8% on average.
Wow.
But that's exactly it. But you having a responsibility to your constituents, and all up on social media, his constituents were telling him, please don't vote for this, please don't vote for this, and he did it anyways. But of course he did, because your campaign contributions dictated your vote, not your conscience.
Yep.
And in that case, he served no consequences. Neither one of them do, and it's representative of everything. And the only person that's putting their foot on their neck is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the young girl from New York, the congresswoman. She's the only one that's out there pointing these things out and holding these people to the fire publicly. But up until there's a switch in education, up until people start holding them accountable, or somebody starts holding them accountable other than their vote, I mean, nothing's going to change. And we're going to be in literally a revolving cycle of injustice of keeping the poor minorities down. It's going to stay that way. That's the system. You have to change the system from the top to bottom. I'm not going to be able to do that in the situation where I am, or even defending somebody in civil rights cases.
Very true. Now, there's a lot going on with our government, speaking of injustice and such. As Trump still is pushing for this wall to be built, Flint still doesn't have clean water, and the latest news is what I saw. I saw an article, and it was talking about some schools in Louisiana who couldn't afford proper funding to get their students a decent education. They were like using really, really old books, like super worn out. And I wanted to zone in on that, since I know you're a teacher. Do you know the status of that situation, or have you heard anything about it?
Oh yeah, I hear about it every day. I've been living this for 10 years now. I've been teaching. First of all, I'm born and raised in New Orleans, in Algiers. I'm a product of New Orleans public schools. I've seen it all my life. But again, that even goes back to my last point. Whenever you have to understand, I can tell you right now what the problem is with public schools, or what is going on inside of particularly Louisiana. Because the reality is, and people don't pay attention because they don't even realize the difference, because they lack the drive or even the knowledge that this is going on. You look at our Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, right? No background in education and things like that, but she is all about charter schools. Now, this woman was born into money, born into privilege her entire life. Only thing she has is white skin and a connection to Trump through business. Of course, she's going to push what is going on because she's in business. So we're talking about charter movement, charter schools.
Right.
There is no funding anymore because of the charter movement. Because charters are privately owned, yet publicly funded entities. They're businesses. At the end of the day. So the school that I was working, the district that I was working at for almost 8 years before I was terminated for filing a lawsuit against them for hiring somebody who had a criminal record as long as my college transcript.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's a whole other segment, Mom. Trust me. Trust me. We're talking about drugs and guns on campus, battery, assault, domestic abuse, credit card fraud, the whole 9 yards. Didn't even have his teacher's license. Had it revoked in 2012 from the state board. But he was still hired as principal, and they knew all that beforehand. But moving on. Mm-hmm. That speaks to the problem. My situation speaks to the problem, which is why I filed the lawsuit, not because I was going to win against this man. Even if I did win against this man in the lawsuit, he doesn't have two nickels to rub together. So what am I going to be getting? A piece of paper?
Yeah, what are you going to get?
This was on principle. Yes, this was on principle, because on top of him doing what he did to me, he was doing it to another woman. And on top of that, in my head, I'm thinking my silence let him do this to her. And ultimately, it's only going to be a matter of time before he does it to a child, if he hasn't already.
Oh my God.
So I can't do this. I can't allow this to go on, and no news station would have covered it had I not filed a lawsuit. But it speaks to the issue because charter schools don't have to follow the same guidelines as regular public schools. They don't have to, according to
whoever they want.
Bulletin, what happens?
Can they hire anyone that they choose, even if they have a criminal background?
Absolutely. They pulled his state records from the FBI. They were the ones that gave it to me because I went looking for him, and I couldn't. He had put in his application as a part of discovery. I got a copy of his application and his transcript. So I started looking because he had admitted on his application that he had some kind of criminal record. But when I went looking, I couldn't find anything, which tells me one thing: you've had it expunged. Otherwise, it'd be public record and I'd be able to see it. So when I finally do get access to his record, I'm telling you, it's pretty extensive. The only reason why he got that job was because of his connection. He was best friends with the CEO of the charter school. That's how he got the job, not because he had extensive qualifications. He lied on his application and in his resume about having a PhD. They called him Dr. Green. He didn't even have his doctorate. They knew about that.
Oh, man.
According to him.
I know who that is, but we'll talk offline.
Yes.
Oh, my
God. Let this person,
all right, I need to stay in.
That's how small this world is. Never mind the fact that this person jumps around so often. Never mind the fact that he has 10 kids by multiple different women. Never mind the fact that he's not a doctor and you didn't vet him. Never mind the fact that you knew about his criminal record and still hired him. It doesn't matter, even though Louisiana state guidelines say that in order to be a principal, you have to have a leadership certification. However, charter schools don't have to have that leadership certification, and the leadership certification requires that you have a Louisiana license. He doesn't have a Louisiana license because the state board revoked it, and he hasn't been able to have one since 2012. But you still saw fit to hire him. But even going into funding, these charter schools, New Orleans at one point was the largest, or the second largest in the country for this whole charter school movement. We have more charter schools here in New Orleans than anywhere else. By the end of this year, this school year, we won't have a regular public school in New Orleans, period. They will all be owned by charter schools, which means that the taxpayers in the city of New Orleans will be paying taxes to fund these charter districts, Inspire, NOLA, Algiers Charter, KIP, all these charter districts, and not one will be held accountable to the American taxpayer dollars. You have absolutely no insight into that. So how are you supposed to hold these charter schools accountable? You're supposed to expect the state to do it?
Right. And they're not. Clearly they're not already with what you've been through. That's unfortunate.
No, they're not. But nonetheless, New Orleans gets used as this big proponent for this charter school movement because charter schools came into New Orleans post-Katrina. We had to have schools open. Algiers, my neighborhood, where I was born and raised and still live to this day, I live right down the street from where I went to high school at Edna Carr. My school was in Algiers charter schools. That's where it started. Recovery School District. The money gets broken down. You get paid per student, so on and so forth. I haven't had a textbook in I don't know how long.
Wow.
I don't remember the last time I had a textbook. I have to get my own resources. I pull my own resources, spend my own money for resources. Teachers all across the country do, which is why you see the red movement going around and spreading like cancer. Teachers are the most overworked and underpaid individuals on the face of this planet. But do you think that that is by accident? This is why I started to do what I do on social media, because this is the bigger picture that nobody sees. If you want to control the masses, you keep them ignorant of the power that they have in order to take their power back from you. That's the ultimate goal of tyranny. You keep them uneducated of their voice, and people think I was crazy all the time. All the videos I do where I'm screaming and hooping and hollering and quoting the Declaration and all that, they're like, the girl's about to have a damn stroke. But for me, I'm like, I have been logical. I've been cool. I've been calm, collect. I've tried to talk to people that disagree. I've done literally everything underneath the sun in order to get people to understand, but nothing worked. So when I raise my voice and start quoting words that this country was founded upon, then people feel the passion because it's organic. That's what this country was. This is what it's supposed to be, rather. And this movement of charter schools, these people, these private entities have no accountability. So if there is a lack of funding, I have no way of even controlling these people, because I'm not, by the end of this year, they just voted in December. There's a school, senior high school, McDonough 35. They're turning that up. They've already turned that one over. And the other two schools under Orleans Parish are going to be closing at the end of this year. Where's the superintendent? What's his job going to be?
Wow.
He's voted.
I have no idea. I don't think he knows either.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he'll be sucking on the taxpayer teeth for a good little while. I mean, this is the current state of affairs. But again, if people lack the knowledge,
right,
or the ability to acquire it, because it's a revolving door of injustice, because if you listen to the pattern that I say, I don't have resources to teach in my classroom. Because I don't have resources, that means I'm going to be even more underpaid than normally possible, which is why you see teachers dropping out all the time and not staying in education very long, because you can't sustain it. Thereby, the kids are getting a poor education. Then these kids, if they do make it to college, they might drop out.
Right, because they don't even understand what they're learning.
Exactly. They can't keep up with the rigor and the independence of college, because their entire educational career, they've been under service. Right. And if that's the case, they've been under service and they don't know any better, how the heck are they supposed to hold these politicians accountable? How are they supposed to participate in government? How are they supposed to know the difference? And again, everybody tells me I'm crazy, but you tell me I'm crazy back in November 6th. Yeah, was I crazy?
Man, you speaking facts. You speaking facts.
I wasn't crazy on November 6th, 2018. Record number of women, all different racial, ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, sexual orientations, all kinds of stuff, professions, teachers, all kinds of stuff. I'm mad as hell I didn't run.
Man, you should have.
In my district, there was only one Democrat running, somebody who had been in office over and over and over. And because there was a blue wave, the Democrats that didn't want to vote for him, but he's the only one, we would have split the vote. Why do you think Bernie Sanders backed Hillary in the end? Because if he still ran as an independent outside of the Democratic Party, he would have split the Democratic vote. He took the L for the team for the sake of the country.
Very true.
Ultimately, that's where I was, because he was running against nothing but Republicans. So we would have split the vote, and then we would have had more reds. We would not. Oh my goodness gracious, trust me.
It wouldn't have went well. I understand.
It would not have gone well, and ultimately, we would have hurt the people that I intended to help in the beginning.
Right. Now, on my show this month, it's mental health awareness. So I've been interviewing different professionals and experts in that field. And so I know that you're a teacher. So within your district, are you all trained on how to help kids use different coping mechanisms within the classroom so they aren't stressed?
As somebody who has suffered with mental health issues my entire life, talking about depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, all my life. Mm-hmm. As somebody who has had that experience, I really personally don't need any training. But do they have I'm just being honest, because at the end of the day, you can't tell me what I've already experienced. There's nothing that you can show me on a PowerPoint that I haven't felt. And they do have training. They call them PDs, like professional development. So they do have PDs where they pull the teachers in and they talk about bullying and how to recognize signs of somebody who's suffering from a mental illness, and how to the process of recommending them to a counselor. And the good thing about the district where I'm working now, it's only one school, and it's a school unlike any other school in the entire country. It's on completely own ball game when it comes down to things. So we're granted, we still take the same kids. We still are in that little one app little thing that they have going on inside the schools in order for school choice and school placement. So it's the same kids, but we have a different type of. I have a mix of kids, unlike I've ever had. And with that, there's all different kinds of dynamics, all different kinds of political affiliation, all different kinds of languages. I teach a third, and a third. Third white, third Hispanic, Latino, and then third black. It makes for a very, but that's New Orleans. Very true. It does make for a very, I don't know how the words to really articulate it, but it's a very interesting mix of kids where it fosters diversity, but at the same time, it also creates an atmosphere where there can be a heightened sense of conflict because there are such diversities, and children these days lack the ability to cope with these things and lack the support. In particular, in New Orleans, I mean, I believe, or it just in general, when you see suicide, and I looked it up not too long ago because I did a video when I was talking about suicide and the things I dealt with this summer, and I looked into it and I saw, man, they have 129 people kill themselves a day. Every day. Over half by firearms, men 3 times more likely than women. There's overall there's a lack of understanding. There's a stigma attached to it, which is one of the reasons why I'm so transparent publicly, not just on social media, but I'm also transparent with my kids. One of the biggest things, because this child will not talk to you. This child will not open up and will do anything and everything in their power to avoid any kind of discussion about the way that they feel if they don't trust you.
Right.
And having a sense of transparency is going to be the first step, because they will more than likely come to you in the case of these problems, and be that way you can be more proactive instead of reactive when it comes to dealing with mental illness. But they do, I can't speak for any other district, but they do, by law, they're mandated to have some kind of bullying thing in place and counselors. But with the lack of funding, you have one counselor for 900 kids.
Oh my God.
How is that one person possibly going to service all these children properly? They can't. So, if you are working in a high poverty or a high amount of free and reduced lunch setting, you're talking about a lot of people that are on Medicaid. There's no access to mental health facilities because a lot of doctors don't want to take Medicaid.
Digital Dope Radio.